Hi, I'm Jennifer Ray and welcome to The Pulse. Today we have a very special guest out here at Nuremberg Garden in Orono, and he is a bird enthusiast, a bird expert, a phenomenal photographer, and also one of two authors of the wingnut articles that are published in the Star and Tribune. So
Correct.
welcome.
Thank you.
On a beautiful Tuesday
It's
afternoon.
a wonderful day.
Yeah, it turned out to be a nice
Good day for birds.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you, a little bit about your background so people know, when did you start getting involved with birds?
When I was 12 years old. And I have the newspaper clipping to prove it. I reported 2 robins in Robbinsdale in January of whatever year that was, 1950.
Oh,
That
really?
really dates me, doesn't it?
Well, it dates
Don't
a
do the
little
math.
bit,
Don't do
but
the
the robins in January is
Yeah.
more surprising to me.
Well, it was at that time. They're not surprising anymore. They spend the winter in Wazetta and probably in your neighborhood too. Just not cold enough anymore.
Oh,
I mean, it
that's
really is.
interesting.
It really is changing.
Yeah, I did not know that.
They live on berries, and I've seen them in Wazetta eating minnows outside the bait shop.
Really? I haven't
Protein.
noticed that either.
It's not common.
And when did you start writing about birds?
I'm at 35 years ago, probably
35
40
years ago? Okay.
I worked for the American Birding Association with Birding Magazine for a while, and I wrote for the MOU for a number of years, Minnesota Ornithologists Union. I did a newsletter, and then when I left there, I started with the Tribune. I've been with the Tribune for 20 years. So I started there, and then I left that group, and I've just been writing for the Tribune since then.
And I know that it's a huge hobby. You do a lot of traveling for it. So there's a couple of things that we really need to talk about today because our time is limited. We could talk for hours. We want to talk about the Bluebird Recovery Program and bluebirds, and particularly nest boxes.
Yes.
And then we also want to discuss where to place bird feeders and windows. And then we also want to discuss what kind of a season it is. And hopefully we'll get some more questions in there, but those are some pretty hefty topics.
That's fine.
So first we'll start with the Bluebird Recovery Program. I learned about the bluebirds and their plight a couple of years ago from you, chatting on the phone, and it was a very long winter. Do you want to share how a long winter or a short winter affects bluebirds and other birds?
Well, bluebirds for the most part migrate, though there are some that will spend the winter here, which is a recent development. Again, the winters aren't what they used to be, but bluebirds tend to go Missouri, south. They don't leave the country. They just go where they can find a warmer temperature and a better access to food. They eat insects, but they eat berries as well. And I think in the winter they probably survive on berries. And you can find berries on bushes around here through the winter. Buckthorn's a really good source of berries. It's the only good thing it is.
Is it? I didn't know that was a big bird nutritional.
Yeah, and you know why buckthorn gives birds diarrhea. So they eat the seed, and 15 minutes later they're planting it somewhere, probably in your yard.
Oh, well.
Yeah,
there's a lot of buckthorn around, so maybe that answers.
That's for sure. Probably not out here.
Why that is, yeah.
No.
And we've got some pictures that we're going to put up, but that one particular winter was hard. I think this was 3 years ago because the snow didn't melt until like the end of May.
Well, when that happened, the birds come back based on their reaction to light. So this whole thing about climate is a problem because nature had everything synced. The light got to a certain level, the birds came back, and about that time, insects were creating, eggs were hatching, larvae was there, insects were available, and then that timed into the bluebirds were catching insects to feed their young, and so forth. Now, if it gets warm up here too early, then the insect timing is off. And if there's snow too long,
which it was a couple years ago,
then that's the problem too, because they can't find food. Some of them were starving.
I remember you sharing
and
that,
the
yeah.
tree swallows were starving too because they're both insect-based. And snow, no insects.
Right, right.
So people were feeding. You feed mealworms, you know about that.
We do,
Yeah.
but at the time we didn't have the bluebird boxes, and had I known, we would have been putting out mealworms for them, but I didn't know until after I chatted with you that this was really a big problem. And and we did have a really long winter that year. But didn't we lose like 20 or 25 or 30% of the
You know, I
bluebird
don't know what the
population?
percent was.
I think it was pretty high.
And I've got 36 boxes that I monitor and keep track of and tend. I didn't find any dead birds around the area, but you wouldn't. They'll die where they die, so
Right.
they didn't have to die in the box.
Right. And then we're going to put up some pictures that you took because you're such a phenomenal photographer.
Thank you very much.
And the first one is going to be of some bluebird embryos. And how did you come across those?
That egg?
Yeah.
Egg. Checking my boxes, I found a nest that had 4 nestlings in it. They were probably a week old, plus 1 egg that was wedged between the nest and the wall of the box. And if those birds are a week old, that egg was no good, and the hen wasn't going to get it back in place, and the whole timing was all bad anyway. So I took the egg. Now that's illegal. I can't have the egg. I can't have feathers. I can't have any part of it. So I just set it on the ground, and I peeled the top off. I was able to get half that shell off, and then we could see the embryo, which I guessed was probably 7 days, about halfway through its development. So you can see the dark eyes underneath the skin. You can see the bill, and then you can see the yolk sac, which is what feeds the bird, and it's attached to him sort of like a big
Umbilical cord.
purse.
Oh,
a big
okay.
yellow purse hanging off his side. So yeah, that was cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've only had one other embryo. I found a goose egg that was the same, abandoned, and I opened it up and I got a goose embryo that was about that big, and it had fingers and toes. It
Really?
hadn't gone to wings yet, and it hadn't gone to webbing. Yeah, it was interesting to see.
Yeah, nature is amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, super amazing. And then we have some, because you're part of the Bluebird Recovery Project, which is where you're checking boxes. Do you want to talk about that, the purpose of that?
Well, there's a national organization called the North American Bluebird Society, and it has state chapters. There's a website, North American Bluebird Society, NABS. Go to Google, type it in. All sorts of information about how to work with bluebirds, what they need, proper boxes, proper box sizes, proper box locations, care for them in the winter if you're feeding them. I used to belong to the Minnesota chapter of that, and I edited their quarterly newsletter for a number of years. So that was really how I got started with bluebirds. I met a woman who lives near Cedar Lake, Doreen Scriven, who was sort of Mrs. Bluebird for the state of Minnesota, and she taught me a lot of things. And here we are. I don't belong to anything anymore.
Okay.
I tend to put my time into either the writing or the tending. Or I give them money instead.
Sure.
They don't need me. They need money.
They do need money. And part of that, though, with your tending the nest boxes, which we're going to get to the nest boxes, because we joined the Bluebird Recovery Project. So for our nest boxes, we look and we report how many eggs there are that were laid, how many actually hatched. And so we're going to put up some other pictures that you provided also, 5-day-old bluebirds and then 14-day-old bluebirds. So actually we check every couple of days just to make sure that they're there, that creature didn't come in and eat them or steal them. And then at about I think after days 17 to 19, we don't look anymore.
Yeah, you don't want to open the box when they're about to fledge, because they'll fledge in your face and you can't put them back in the box.
And yes, and that's another interesting thing that we'll talk about with the nest boxes. Yeah, so you don't want them to fledge too early before they're ready, and that might force them to do that.
Yeah, and then the parents have got a real problem. Instead of having 5 birds in one little place,
Right.
they've got 5 birds all over
All
the
over the
place
place.
to find and feed and care for them.
So now the nest boxes for bluebirds are very special.
They are.
So do you want to talk about nest boxes in general for all birds, and which box do you have here?
I have this box needs work, folks. But a couple of things. You can see this is very heavy, and it was attached to a wooden post with these big bolts. The wooden post was bad because it access for predators. A cat could climb up the post. A raccoon could climb up the post. So I don't, and they're also very heavy and hard to work with. You'd need a snow fence, a big metal snow fence post and a ladder. I can do it easier than that. But this was the standard box for years and years and years. In fact, I was here earlier, the fellow who tends boxes at Carver Park, and this is the kind of box they have. Now, this is interesting. This is a wren nest, or the beginning of a wren nest, all the sticks, and underneath it is what appears to be a bluebird nest, because it's fine grass. And there is I hadn't looked, there's an egg of somebody's egg, I don't know whose. But this box probably hasn't been tended for years.
So we want to talk about not only what kind of boxes, but the actual tending of the boxes. And you have a story that I wanted you to share about a wonderful place. It isn't this place, Nuremberg Gardens, where they put up boxes, but then they don't tend them. So the importance of tending to them if you're going to invest in a birdhouse.
Well, you look at them every other day. I don't do that. I've got three dozen, and I look at them about once a week. And so I have sort of casual care. I don't, in the North American Bluebird Society, you could meet people who would pick the fly larva off the baby bluebirds. Go in, hold the bird. You can hold the baby, put it back. You can open this box with a bird in there, and she'll either fly out or she won't. And if she stays there, fine. Bluebirds are really very tolerant of people. So our tree swallows aren't as much. Chickadees are pretty good. But you could open this up and just see if everything's okay and just keep track. And I do as you do. I keep track of eggs, hatchlings, and I report. I work at the Wayzata Country Club. I don't work, that's where I volunteer. And they belong to an organization, and they report their bird progress. And they're now becoming interested in birds other than bluebirds. They're very conscious of how golf course chemicals can interfere with bird life.
Sure.
Particularly bluebirds, because they eat on the ground.
Right, right. So we need to talk about the importance of cleaning out the nests.
Yeah, I'm not going to use this box again, but if I was, I would pull all of this stuff out, because the birds won't clean it out next spring. They're not going to do that.
Right.
And if you don't do it, the bluebird might build on top of its old nest. I've seen that. Nobody would build on top of a tree swallow nest, because it is foul. Really don't know why. Bluebirds, baby birds will pass their waste in a little sack. It's called a fecal sack. And the adult feeds the baby, grabs the fecal sack, flies away and drops it. Baby tree swallows just evacuate in the nest for 2 weeks. Think about that.
Yeah, so it gets pretty messy.
It's really bad. It's like cemented in the box.
Yeah.
So you pull those out.
Now, I do hose mine because we can do that, and they're close to the house. If you're that's not not so easy if you're out here, if you're out in the woods and you're tending boxes. But is there anything special that you need to do other than like with the nests or with this that is in the box?
No, I'd clean it out and make sure that there was no dust and debris in there. Just empty it out, and I'd leave it open in the winter.
So
Otherwise, you
air
get
out
mice.
and,
No,
right.
airing's
Oh.
good. Yes, you get mice. You don't want mice. Mice have worse household habits than tree swallows. You don't want to open it up in the spring and find a mouse that's been
Right.
peeing in there for 4 months. Don't
Right.
do that.
Right.
So I leave them open, and then in the spring, when it's about time for birds to return, I go back and check them again and close them all up. And the other things I look for are wasps will sometimes build
A nest?
in the box. I have one over now that's got a small wasp nest beginning. That box also has 3 tree frogs at the moment. I don't know how or why, but there they are. Wasp will build in here. Wasps will build behind the box. So it's a good thing when you're checking them, particularly when the birds aren't there, is to be cautious. I always rap on the box at any time of year before I open it, so that
If a bird's
the
in there, it can
occupant
fly
isn't
out.
surprised
Yeah.
and I'm not surprised.
Because that is surprising sometimes when they
Yeah.
come flying out right at you. It's a surprise. Now we're also going to put up a picture, a beautiful picture that you made of a house wren nest.
House wrens, chickadees, bluebirds, and tree swallows will use these boxes. Depends on habitat, really. And this is perfect habitat. There's lots of lawn and grass. Bluebirds like that. A pasture, a prairie, a golf course, big open spaces like this. They're unlikely. You must have a big yard if you've got bluebirds.
We have a lot of land, and our bluebird boxes that actually have the bluebirds in them are not on our land. We walk behind the garage, and it's up on a hill. The other two sets of boxes that we have closer to the house and the barn are homes to chickadees and wrens,
Right.
because it's too much.
Yeah, you can
Trees.
control what birds you get by where you put the boxes. And we'll go later and look at a couple boxes here, and they're paired. You often see two boxes together, and why is that? Because tree swallows will take one box, but they won't take the second one. They'll defend their territory. They don't want another tree swallow there. They don't care about bluebirds. So the second box is available for bluebirds, or vice versa. The bluebirds come in first, and the tree swallows take the second box. And they both eat insects, but they don't compete. Tree swallows take everything out of the air. Bluebirds take everything off the grass. So they're eating the same things. They're just shopping at different stores.
Sure, sure. So in order to have birds, or if you're interested in them, you need to make sure that you've got a proper box and that you clean it.
Yep.
And take out the nest and monitor it on occasion. And then it comes to feeding.
Let's talk about proper box for a minute.
Okay, proper
Because
boxes.
you can go to hardware stores and bird stores or craft shows and find a lot of really bad boxes. Why are they bad? The hole's too low to the bottom. It should be about 5 inches. There's the bottom. So yeah, it'd be about 5 inches. Otherwise, a raccoon could come up there and stick its paw down inside and pull things out. So, and the boxes will show you 4 inches square. And the circular ones are 4 inches in diameter, and I don't know how many square inches because that's algebra. Pi r squared. Can't do it. This hole is a little bit bigger. The other boxes we'll look at aren't oblong. They're simply a round hole. I think they're 1.25 inches. And you want to keep starlings out and house sparrows. They're the other two birds likely to use your boxes. Neither one of those is native to this country.
So if you see them starting to build a nest,
Pull it out.
pull it out.
Throw it on the ground. There are eggs, pull them out.
Okay.
There are baby birds in there, I'm sorry, pull them out. We don't need any more house sparrows. I've had boxes where they go in and they peck the skull of the hen, kill her.
Yep.
They open up all the eggs. Now, what's the point? They're not going to use the box because they don't take that stuff out. But they don't want competition. So I've got some at the country club. They used to have horses. They still have the barn. The sparrows came with the grain and the horses in the barn. The sparrows are still there. Everything else is gone. And if I put anything within 100 yards of that barn, I get house sparrows. So I keep things further away.
Right. So, and the size of the hole, as you said, is really, really important. Where the hole is on it is really important.
Yeah, that's the problem with some boxes you find that you could buy is they're too short. Or worse yet, you can't open to clean them. And if you can't open it,
They're a closed box. They've got a hole, but you can't get in there.
All sides are nail tight. There's no way to get in and take the old nest out or to check and see what's going on. So if you use it, you might use it once, and then you've got a problem. So I'd say buy an appropriate box. You have to be able to open it.
Have to be able to remove the prior nests.
I've gone through craft shows and looked at them and said, "Can you open this box?" He said, "No." I said, "Why not?"
Okay, Jim, where are we supposed to put our feeders? What's the best thing for people to enjoy them and the best place to put them without having the birds actually go into the glass?
The best place would be far away from the house and the windows. But if you want to see the birds and develop an appreciation for the birds, then you want them closer to the house. Then you want to protect your windows. I have two big windows I have feeders on my deck 10 feet from the house. 2 plate glass sliding door windows. One's got screen, the other's got the decals you can buy in a hardware store or a bird store. You put them on and they break up the image, and hopefully the birds understand that they shouldn't fly into that window. And why do I want them up close? Why am I willing to take the chance? Because, and you, anybody, I want them to understand birds, to watch birds, to appreciate birds. I want them ultimately to take all of that interest and help birds.
Yes.
So when we talk about bird conservation, we talk about habitat, they've got some understanding that these are really beautiful creatures, fun to watch, fun to have around, and we should take care of them.
Yeah, I agree. And we've, of course, had some birds fly into our windows, unfortunately. And I wanted to put up a couple pictures here of the barn swallows feeding chicks, which you sent, which is an amazing photograph. And also a chickadee eating some mealworms.
Yes.
And mealworms, of course, are a favorite food for many of them. And I have some footage that we'll be putting up of our bluebirds eating mealworms that we actually feed. And then providing water for drinking and or a bird bath, because they enjoy that. And I've got a robin bathing picture that you shared with us that we'll put up there too.
Yeah, keep the water fresh, keep the bird bath clean, empty it out, scrape the algae out, get rid of the bird poop.
Yeah.
And fresh water.
Yeah, fresh water as much as you can. We also have a yellow rumped warbler picture, which is really super cool. And I even had to ask you what kind of bird that was because I didn't know.
It looks like a ballet dancer. It was
Yes,
real
it
early
does.
in the spring. It was at Westwood Nature Center. And those are some of the first birds back are that particular warbler, because they can live on, they don't have to find larvae and insects that early. They can live on other things,
Sure,
berries,
sure.
fruit.
And then I also wanted to include your shorebirds landing. We were going to talk about migration. We might have a shorter time period on that. So let's go over to the nest boxes over there and we'll talk about what kind of a season it was. Welcome back. We are here looking at some bluebird nest boxes, and Jim is going to show us how easy these are to put them in.
Well, first of all, this box is locked onto its rebar. This rebar was pounded into the ground, and then he took the box on this 1-inch electrical conduit and he slipped it over the top, and you can lock it in place. That's the little device you'd use to lock two pieces of conduit together. So you're in business.
Super
And
easy.
if you want to move it,
Yep.
you just move it. Now, I like these boxes. First of all, they're used easily by the birds. They like them, they use them, and you could pull this off and check it,
And clean it.
clean it.
Yep.
It's easy
Empty
to put
it,
back
clean it.
on. It's just got
Yep.
two little pegs. You give it a squeeze, and on
There,
it goes.
and on it goes.
It's pointed, as you see this one, it's pointed to the east to keep it out of the prevailing west and southwest winds in the summer. You don't want the entry to the box facing the weather, away from the weather. These are out in the open. This is bluebird country, tree swallow country. Behind the camera, there's trees and brush. If you move this 20 feet from the trees and brush, you'd probably get chickadees, and if you put it right up against the trees and brush, you'd probably get house wrens.
House wrens. Sure, sure. And this box,
Oh,
I'll hold this if you need me to hold this while you're doing that.
well, this box was designed and invented by a guy named Steve Gilbertson. He also did this one. I prefer the wooden ones. I'm not sure why, I just do. What I like about this is it opens down. Many of them open up,
Right.
and then you're doing this. So opening down is just better for cleaning, better for checking, and the bird doesn't really care. So you can buy these boxes in bird stores and these boxes in bird stores, or you can go to the Bluebird website and get plans. You can buy a book called Woodworking for Wildlife from the Minnesota DNR. That's got all sorts of plans in it. Plans aren't hard to find, and this is pretty easy to build. Even I could do this.
Just like people, birds need a home to
That's
raise
right.
their family. So can you tell us real quick, Jim, what's a good season, a bad season, and what kind of a bird season was it this year?
Well, it was a mediocre bird season, I think. I didn't have as many bluebirds as I have in the past. I probably had a third of the boxes occupied by bluebirds. They brought off chicks without any problem. There just weren't that many of them. I don't know why. Half of the other boxes were occupied by tree swallows. They seemed to do just fine. So it was, as far as I'm concerned, it was a Midland season. I've had seasons where half the boxes were bluebirds, 18 or 20, and the rest are tree swallows and a couple of wrens in there. So this was just a little slower.
So what's a good season?
And the snow leaves early, and the birds get back when the bugs are out, and they raise 2 broods, and nothing goes wrong.
Well, we'll hope that from now on we have nothing but a good season, right?
Right.
Well, Jim, thank you so much for coming
My
out and
pleasure.
sharing your knowledge and your expertise on these and the homes. And is it Big Bird Day? Is that the terminology for birders who go out and look at birds? What is the terminology for that?
Yeah, you can have a big day. That's
Big day,
as,
big
as,
day.
as many birds as you can see in 24 hours,
Yeah.
wherever you want to go. You
Yeah.
can have a big year. I'm just writing about a big year.
A
North
big
America.
Year. North America, a big year.
He traveled 168,000 miles, battled through depression, and a girlfriend who thought he'd never come back. It's a really great story.
Well, I can't wait to read it. Jim, thanks so much for being our guest today.
You're welcome.
Thanks for watching The Pulse, and happy birding to you.